I'm so Holy Ghost happy and humbled that this isn't just some political show where we talk about the highlights and the headlines of the day. No, we don't regurgitate just political poison that promotes partisanship. No, we raise up an army of advocates that we can activate. And 2 weeks ago, we spent deep details talking about an injustice that was happening in the land. It was an injustice. Dana Nessel, she came against two American patriots. She came against Stefanie and Stefanie. We called it out. And today we had the honor and the privilege to be able to talk to Stefanie Lambert, who's the attorney. And yesterday, some good news. This is what you were able to do by raising awareness, by making phone calls, by writing letters, to make sure that we are able to bring justice, to allow it to roll like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. Only the church can do this. Only the church can. The Save America Act, before it was called the Save America Act, it was called the SAVE Act. And it was on March 6th that we took an army from Detroit and we wore shirts. The shirt said, "Civil rights equals fair elections." For all the people out there that are talking about the Voting Rights Act and about black people, how about you file an amicus brief on all of our cases? Because what they're trying to do is make elections about color only. No, we are saying that they're voting for people without their knowledge. We have the proof. We have the evidence. But before we get to that, I want to put on a great American hero so that she can go into great detail about a great victory that happened. Stefanie Lambert, are you there?
I am. Thank you so much for having me on.
I am so Holy Ghost happy and humbled that you are on. You are a hero. You are an American hero. And I put you in the same category as those great heroes on January 6th. I really do. Thank you for fighting. Will you explain to the listeners, you have about between 300,000 and 600,000 people listening to you right now. Will you talk to the listeners about what happened in the context of the court case?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, let me first say this. What I did wasn't special. I just did my job as an attorney, okay? And they intimidated clerks, attorneys, you name it. That was the name of the game. And I just did my job as I was supposed to do my job, and I'll get to that. But this wasn't political. Our elections are not, how elections function are not political. It just needs to be accurate.
I love it.
Reflect the will of the people. And the people need to know that it's accurate, right? So here's what happened here. There's 4 rounds that I've gone at it with the Attorney General, and I've won 3 of them. The 4th one's still open. I'll talk
Dana
about
Nessel,
that in a
huh?
second. Dana Nessel,
wow.
Dirty Dana Nessel. She
Absolutely.
has a reputation. Isn't it just insane? The people she's attacking and targeting, and the people of Flint never got justice.
Absolutely.
Right? She started attacking Todd Flood during her campaign because she thought it would be beneficial. He had that case bound over. He was working it up successfully. It was slow, we see. But they never got justice. And I've heard terrible things like the contractors didn't replace all the pipes, but they billed for it to cover it up.
Cruel
and
queen.
I heard,
cruel
oh, I
queen.
know. I heard the feds were supposed to investigate that, but then Dana said, no, I have it, and never did anything. Who knows what's actually going on, because she's been wasting everybody's time targeting people like me and my clients. So what she did in Hillsdale, the Adams Township clerk, Adams Township is in Hillsdale County, was elected in 2020. She didn't run the 2020 election. She was elected in it. And right after the election, she's got an engineering background. It's a part-time job there, so she was full-time employed. Smart, data-driven, really smart woman, okay, that was not born and raised in Adams Township. She moved there later in life. So she's trying to figure out what she's supposed to be doing. The country's going crazy about elections. She's reading everything she can get her hands on.
Sure.
What does the contract say? What is she supposed to do? What does the law say? And she's just trying to learn everything she can. Well, she raised red flags without realizing it, because there were some registrations. She was trying to make sure the voter roll was accurate in Adams Township. And there were some registrations where the signatures were spelled wrong. from the registration. Like, so people don't, they change their signatures over time, but they don't spell their name wrong.
Right.
I mean, or they don't change how they spell it. So she starts sending to the BOE, hey, I've got some bad registrations here. These need to be corrected. The county clerk during this time also sends emails to all the clerks in Hillsdale and says, hey, we're finding bad registrations. Look at your rolls. So she raised these red flags. Now, people don't know this. This is really, really was well concealed. But weeks before the 2020 election, Jonathan Brader, the Michigan Department
he's dirty.
Director,
We know him. We know him. He's dirty. Unbelievable.
All right. Well, he personally inflated the Michigan voter roll by 700,000 weeks before the election. Wow. So there's no way to verify those. 700,000. We have approximately 10 million people in the state of Michigan. All the kids, if you look at the eligible voters, what percentage is that? That's insane. And so the clerks all got a notice that said, hey, we're inflating it. You're not going to see a paper trail at your desk. We're going to do it through the driver database. So expect to see your voter roll change, right? In all these small communities. So that is really significant because now I'm explaining why we got targeted. So she raises red flags. She's got bad registrations. And so he starts sending her emails that he misrepresents our lawful directives. They're not. She doesn't work for him. She's a constitutional clerk. And he says, delete your EPB data, which is the electronic poll book data. And she's like, why? I'm supposed to keep that for 22 months by law. Why would I delete that? And he's like, you have to delete it. And if you don't listen to me with my instructions, that's a misdemeanor and I'll have you charged. Okay.
Wow.
She's terrified, right? This law abiding person. And then he starts doing other crazy things. He says, I want you to give your tabulator to the vendor to update it. And so she goes to the contract and she's like, when is this thing due for an update? And sure enough, it's not due for an update because it's programmed to store data for the 22 months for the retention period. And she's like, well, isn't this update going to wipe the data that I have to maintain on it? So meanwhile, what's going on is the OIG was doing an audit of the BOE, right?
Can you explain the acronym for the listeners, please?
The Office of the Investigator, I'd have to look.
Inspector?
Yes, you've got it. Mm-hmm. So they're investigating and auditing the BOE. So the BOE is in a panic at this point because, like, oh no, data is going to be looked at.
The Board of Elections, and that's what Baxter's over, right? Mm-hmm.
Correct. And so they're sending emails to the local clerk saying, hey, this audit doesn't pertain to you. We're being audited. So you don't have to do this. You don't have to do that. Right? Very suspicious. Like, if everything's on the up and up, why can't they just see everything? Right? So meanwhile, Stefanie Scott, the Adams Township clerk, gets another email, this time from the state, where now they're saying a different person from the state is saying, hey, for this audit, we don't have the electronic poll book data. We didn't retain it. We had an error at the state level. It didn't get retained. Can you produce yours to them? Okay. So come to find out, when Jonathan Brader testifies at our hearing, they intentionally program it to never have a state final record to ever produce.
Wow.
The only data ever maintained is at the local level. The very level he's telling them to delete. And so she says no, right? And so now she's being accused of, she doesn't listen to him, she's going to, be charged with a crime. And she goes to her township attorney, and he says, I'm not an election specialist here, so he runs ducks and cover. He says, you need an outside counsel, okay? I'm not qualified to do this. So that's where I get the gift that keeps on giving. No one else stands up for anyone. Mm-hmm. And I don't live anywhere near here. And someone called me and they said she's called every attorney in her book. No one will help her because at this time there were enough attacks. Oh, nobody wanted to poke their head up on this.
So why would you help her though? Why would you do that?
I was already being attacked. I'm not afraid of the Attorney General or the Secretary of State. I know the law. And so I said, and I have an ethical obligation as a lawyer. I took an oath that I can't turn down any potential client that can't find an attorney. So I said, I will help you. So I came in to help her. And so at that time, they were telling her to produce the tabulator, to sign the logic and accuracy test that never took place. She's like, I can't do that. So I protected her from everything. And then we got her an expert. And so the expert analyzed, would it be a violation of federal law if she deleted that EPB data, which they're telling her to delete.
When you say EPP, can you explain EPP for the listeners?
Yes, the electronic poll book data is who voted in that jurisdiction, in that precinct, okay? So when you go into Adams Township and there's a line of 20, it has the names of the 20 on it. That's what Jonathan Brader wanted deleted, okay? And when he testified years later in our case, we learned they don't keep it at the state level. So he's ordering the only copy of it to be deleted.
The local level.
So,
yeah, he was intimidating the clerks. He's intimidating the clerks.
Right. So Benjamin Cotton is a former federal employee, has all these cyber certifications. He's testified before Congress. He was the whistleblower that discovered that China was accessing our military databases, and that got fixed by Homeland Security and Department of War this year. He's impeccable credentials. So I retained Ben Cotton for Stefanie Scott, and Ben looks at the data, and he looked at what we obtained from the state as to who voted in Adams Township for 2020, and he wrote a report that said it differed by 11.5%. So let me break that down, because this is why we were targeted. So who voted? The 20 people. Say it's 20. They matched the Adams Township certification. They also matched the Hillsdale certification as to who voted in Adams Township. Okay? It differed. The state data changed at the state level as to who voted in Adams Township after everything was reported from Adams. It was swapped out. Okay? Wow. So go back to they inflated the voter roll by 700,000. And so I'll just let you in on a little secret here. Stefanie Scott's not the only clerk that retained that data. Other clerks did, and it's off in other jurisdictions by 4%, 12%, 15%, 8%. It's changing after the local jurisdiction sends it on. Okay?
I see.
And so she discovered that. I'm her attorney. It gets exposed, and we get targeted because we have this nuclear evidence as to what's happening in the state of Michigan that they want to hide. And none of this is transparent. This is why we need hand counting, paper ballots.
Sure.
And the roll needs to be maintained at the local level, not through the driver database.
Yeah, and we literally go to the election, and this is how we've been able to put our system together. We go to the election department on the local level, and this is how we've been so successful in being able to see that our Secretary of State and our clerk, they're voting for people without their knowledge. What did Dana Nessel, like, she was threatening you all with 20 years, correct? Was that it? Was she threatening?
Correct. So here's what they did, because they're getting caught, okay, with what they've actually done, which is criminal, and they're ordering the destruction of the evidence, which is also a different crime. They're caught, so they target us to tarnish our reputations, and they make up the law to do it. So what they alleged, so we got some of the counts, I got some of them knocked out at the district court, okay, with a tabulator where they went and took it by search warrant, and she was trying to protect it. I said, you're not getting it unless you have a search warrant. You have no legal basis to get one. They went and got one because they misrepresented the law to the district court judge and took the tabulator, right, the data she's trying to preserve. So we got those knocked out. So it came down to the last charges left. They were alleging that this electronic poll book data was confidential, that she wasn't entitled to have an expert look at it, even though they're saying you're going to commit a crime if you don't delete it. And she's saying, I'm going to commit a crime if I do delete it. And so she's entitled to, of course, an expert. Law offices hire them all the time. And they're saying that it had confidential data on it.
And that's what they're telling the president. That's what the DOJ, that's what they're telling the president, too. You can't have the voter rolls on the state level because it's confidential.
Right.
But they give it to Eric, though.
Confidential.
But they give that same information to Eric.
Correct. They give it to a third party, Eric, and it's not confidential under the law. They were making this up. They would like for that to be the law, but it's not the law. They can go to the legislature and ask for that amendment, but that doesn't fit their ability to make up a crime to charge us with. So they made it up, said it was confidential, and unfortunately, because they threw all the wet noodles at the wall to see what would stick, there's no law violations, but they're trying to convince the district court judge that she didn't give up the tabulator and she has to listen to Jonathan Brader with his authority that they're making up. And it was this big confusing mess initially where the district court is trying to sort through. Usually prosecutors don't make up crimes, right? And so we're standing there saying she's making up the law. And the judge didn't properly analyze that statute. She kind of like just left it alone and didn't look into what we were saying.
And this is a district court judge, right? Just district court judge. Who was it?
Yeah, it was Megan Stiverson. So it's unfortunate she didn't look at the law properly. But I have to say, I have to compliment her in the sense that she allowed us to create a great record in her courtroom. We had hearing after hearing where we put Jonathan Brader under oath, which is just wonderful. He was sworn under oath, and he admitted to all sorts of things, like ordering the destruction of the data. And
Stefanie, we have to go to a break, but can you hang out with us? So we want to hear how the story ends. I mean, all the listeners, you're a hero. We're so grateful that you're on. Thank you for your time. Isn't it possible for you to stay on for another couple minutes with us after the break?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Stefanie. You're listening to Politics and Praise with Lorenzo Sewell. It's election fraud Friday. We have the proof, we have the people, we have the evidence. Yes, we have several court cases in the Eastern District Court. We've gone all the way up to the Supreme Court. And I do have a patriot on the line right now, Stefanie Lambert, attorney. Are you there?
I'm here. Thank you for having me on. So I kind of gave you a lot of information there. Tell me where you have questions, because this was
I really want to know.
Process.
I really want to know, and this is the thing. And let me say this to you, because I think this is really. This is all we do, right? Literally, I am the election integrity evangelist. Literally, right? We have proof, people, evidence, whole nine. And what I wanted to, first of all, we're better together. I'm glad we're together, and I'm glad we have an army of advocates here that are listening to you. The thing, I really want people to know what you were facing. What were you facing in terms of time, in terms of, we talked about the case with everyone, but obviously you're on. What was the risk what were they trying to do with you in terms of targeting you? What were they trying to hit you with in terms of time?
My life. So I was Sidney Powell's local counsel. Dana Nessel asked that I was sanctioned hundreds of thousands of dollars, and she grieved me and asked the judge to do it. That took like a year and a half to work out, maybe more. I think it was 2023 I finally resolved that before the United States Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. So my
James
career
Sutton's up there. Sutton's
right,
up there, yeah.
Right. And I'm just a practitioner. I'm on my own. I was a Wayne County prosecutor for a long time. And I don't have a big firm, right? So they're trying to sanction me hundreds of thousands of dollars and take my law license so that I can't, one, make a living, but two, represent anyone and pursue these matters in court, because I'm a very good trial attorney and a former prosecutor, and I know what election fraud is. And by the way, for that Detroit case, had the court allowed a trial, we would have gotten something called discovery, meaning the trial.
Sure. No, I know what it is. Yeah. That's what we've been fighting for. Oral argument, we've been fighting for discovery.
Don't know.
Yeah.
I represent someone by the name of Yehuda Miller. He did a FOIA of the city of Detroit for the 2020 ballot, every document, the envelopes, all of it. And we have expert reports that analyzed it when the FOIA was fulfilled, where the ballots are not real ballots, and the city of Detroit people are saying, hey, this ballot doesn't look right, and they're making comments. There's precincts with more ballots than envelopes, more envelopes than ballots, and other precincts, right? And who knows how that impacted the vote.
Right.
Because it's not about overturning an election like they've said. What it's about is making sure that it's accurate and reflects the will of the people. Who cares who wins? I don't like Democrats or Republicans these days. I like the people and the Constitution.
Well, Gilchrist, he was saying there was too many people, too. So what was your client facing in terms of time? What was Dana? What was she saying? The Attorney General. What was she saying?
Decades, because the one count alone carried 7 years.
What account was that? What was
that was unauthorized access to a computer. So here's the funny part about it. It was her darn computer in Adams Township. It was hers. Her data she has to maintain. She's the duly elected constitutional clerk. And it never said that data is confidential. So when they're telling her, you need to delete this, and she's going, wait a minute, that could be a federal crime, of course she gets to have an expert weigh in as to whether or not it would have been a federal law violation, which that's what the expert said. He said if you deleted that, that would have been a violation. It's the only unique data that has all of this to verify who actually voted in the election.
So the Attorney General made up laws.
Yes, and that's what the court order said when it dismissed it yesterday. Made up laws. And this isn't the first time. I have the Oakland County case. I worked with Matt DePerno on the Antrim County case. We filed expert reports that showed there was international interference and connections to the election machines, that the votes were shifted in a way inconsistent with what the Secretary of State's expert said. We showed how it actually happened. Our experts came out of NSA, the former technical director of counterterrorism that brought down bin Laden. Okay, he was one of the experts. We had Ben Cotton. We had Jeffrey Lambert out of National C&D Labs. Top United States experts analyzed all of this. And the judge, when he dismissed it as moot, saying, oh, the Secretary of State did an audit, the case is moot, you don't get to explore all of these things. He said, wow, these expert reports really should be reviewed by the legislature. So Dana Nessel at that time attacked us, said we had done something illegal, which she never said to that judge, by the way. She never said, oh, hey, I've got expert reports with something illegal.
You know, what's interesting
What's
about Jonathan Brader is that he's from Eric. He was appointed by Whitmer, and right now he's trying to frame the entering. It looks like her name is Victoria Bishop from
right. That's his new target. And guess why I think she's the new target? Because Cheryl Guy, who was the prior clerk, thought she had deleted everything, and she even announced on the video she deleted records. Vicki Bishop has access to records they don't want her to have access to. So when she started verifying the accuracy of the voter roll, that's when she got attacked by Jonathan Brader. What it's really about is she has 2020 Antrim evidence.
Wow.
That's what they don't want. So they would like to lock her, like Stefanie Scott, the Adams Township clerk, out of her office. That's what this is about. Anybody that looks at the evidence. So I have the Oakland County case where Matt DePerno was charged. I was charged, and State Representative Dare Rendon were charged. That the Court of Appeals has stepped in because they were, again, making up law that doesn't exist and trying to do that for the jury.
So the Sixth Circuit stepped in.
That was the federal court case I won on the city of Powell. Now I switched over to Oakland, so it's the Michigan Court of Appeals is considering the law before trial. So the Court of Appeals says, nope, this is not going to trial until we weigh in on the law. And they already see that it's a bunch of nonsense and it's made up again.
If you would have lost this case, what would that have meant for you?
I could have died in prison. That's what they want. They want me not to be an attorney. They want me to sit behind,
and your client,
jail cell.
Both of you all would have been in prison that long?
Oh, and Stefanie, they wanted to do that to her because it would chill any clerk's speech and their ability to think that they can actually question their own data that they're required by law to maintain accurately.
So what's the next step now? Like, what do we do? What's the next step for you all?
Well, I'm waiting on the government's next step. The government has really important investigations underway. Indictments are starting to get unsealed. There's a number of honest, good, ethical prosecutors within that are looking at crime and evidence and doing the right thing. And then there's a bunch of corruption that still exists that from within. I mean, I heard this week that there's a corrupt, group that has tried to shut down the most serious money laundering investigation related to the vendors.
Wow. Well,
it's very serious. So it's not just about accurate election results. There's money laundering.
Oh, absolutely. They cheat to steal. I mean, that's what we talk about all the time. I mean, Stefanie, listen, we're going to do this together. We have a documentary coming out, the same guys that did 2,000 Mules, and we know they didn't have the proof, but we have the people. We have literally 15 signed affidavits of people that have been voted for illegally. We have several court cases right now in the Eastern District Court. And I want to just say thank you. I want to stay in contact with you. I'm very grateful for your leadership in this. And you're a hero. Thank you so much for being on Politics and Praise. Thank you so much.